The late-night choice. It was a stormy night, the kind where the rain pelted the windows with a relentless fury and the wind howled like a lost soul. Lisa sat alone in her living room, the glow of the TV casting eerie shadows on the walls. She had always loved horror movies, especially on nights like this. There was something about the thrill of being scared in the safety of her own home that appealed to her. Her husband, Tom, was out of town on a business trip, leaving her alone in their spacious, old Victorian house. She relished these moments of solitude, a chance to indulge in her guilty pleasure without interruption. Lisa browsed through the streaming service, her finger hovering over various titles. Finally, one caught her eye, Nightmare Reflection. The cover was simple, just a mirror with a shadowy figure reflected in it. Intrigued, she clicked play. A familiar beginning. The movie opened with a woman alone in her living room, late at night, watching TV. Lisa chuckled at the coincidence. The woman on the screen looked eerily like her, with dark hair and tired eyes. As the scenes unfolded, Lisa found herself increasingly uneasy. The woman's life mirrored her own in unsettling detail. The woman in the movie was named Sarah. She lived in an old Victorian house with her husband, who was often away on business trips. She too loved horror movies, particularly on stormy nights. As the movie progressed, Lisa noticed more and more similarities. The house in the movie was a near replica of hers, right down to the creaky wooden floors and the grand staircase in the foyer. Unsettling parallels. Lisa's discomfort grew as the plot of the movie began to blur with her reality. Sarah discovered strange occurrences in her home, objects moving on their own, whispers in the night, and a persistent feeling of being watched. Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine. She had experienced similar oddities in her own house but had always dismissed them as her imagination or the quirks of an old building. In the movie, Sarah found a dusty old mirror in the attic, a relic from the house's previous owners. The mirror seemed to have a life of its own, reflecting scenes that didn't match the reality in front of it. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She had found an old mirror in her attic shortly after moving in but had never noticed anything unusual about it. A haunting realization. As the movie continued, Sarah became increasingly paranoid. She saw fleeting shadows in the corners of her vision and heard voices calling her name. She began to suspect that she was being haunted. Lisa's heart raced as she realized she had experienced similar phenomena. The sense of being watched, the whispers in the night, she had always brushed them off, but now they seemed all too real. In a chilling scene, Sarah looked into the mirror and saw not her own reflection, but a twisted, ghastly version of herself. The reflection spoke to her, revealing horrifying truths about her life and her fate. Lisa's hands trembled as she watched. She had never dared to look too closely into her own mirror, fearing what she might see. The breaking point. Sarah's sanity began to unravel. She started to believe that she was already dead, trapped in a purgatorial existence, reliving the same events over and over. The movie depicted her descent into madness with harrowing intensity. Lisa felt a cold dread settle in her chest. What if she, too, was already dead? What if her life was just a ghostly echo of a past she couldn't remember? The movie reached its climax as Sarah confronted her own reflection in the mirror. The reflection revealed that she had died in a tragic accident years ago, and that she was now a restless spirit, unable to move on. Sarah's screams echoed through the house as the screen faded to black. Reality blurs. The credits rolled, but Lisa couldn't move. She sat frozen, her mind racing. The similarities between her life and Sarah's were too striking to ignore. She glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight. The storm outside had intensified, the wind howling like a chorus of lost souls. Lisa's gaze was drawn to the mirror in the corner of the room. It was the same mirror she had found in the attic, now polished and hanging on the wall. She had always avoided looking into it for too long, a nagging fear keeping her from doing so. Now, she felt an irresistible pull. The mirror's secret. With a sense of impending dread, Lisa stood and approached the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, but something was off. The eyes in the mirror seemed colder, more distant. She reached out a trembling hand and touched the glass. The reflection's lips moved, but no sound came out. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest. She leaned closer, straining to hear. The reflection spoke again, this time the words echoing in her mind. "You are dead, Lisa. You have been for years." Lisa stumbled back, her heart racing. She shook her head, trying to dispel the voice from her mind. But the reflection continued, its voice a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "You died in a car accident, the same night you found this house. You've been living in a loop, unable to move on." Unraveling memories. Fragments of forgotten memories began to surface in Lisa's mind. She remembered driving through the storm, the blinding headlights of an oncoming car, the screech of tires, and then, nothing. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had been in an accident, but she had never woken up. She had never left the house. Tears streamed down her face as she looked around the room. The walls seemed to close in on her, the shadows deepening. The house, her sanctuary, now felt like a prison. She understood now why Tom was never home, why she was always alone. Tom had moved on, but she had not. The spirit's lament. Lisa sank to her knees, sobbing. The truth was unbearable. She was a ghost, trapped in a never-ending cycle of haunting her own home. The whispers, the shadows, the eerie feeling of being watched, it had all been her. She was the ghost she had feared. The reflection watched her, a sad smile on its lips. "You can move on, Lisa. You just have to let go." Lisa shook her head, the thought of leaving her home, her life, too much to bear. But the reflection's words echoed in her mind. Let go, move on, the final goodbye. With a deep breath, Lisa stood and faced the mirror once more. She saw her life for what it was, a ghostly echo of a past that no longer existed. She had to find the strength to let go, to move on to whatever lay beyond. "I'm ready," she whispered. The reflection nodded, and the glass of the mirror began to ripple, like the surface of a pond. Lisa stepped forward, her heart pounding. She reached out and touched the glass, feeling a strange warmth spread through her. As she stepped into the mirror, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The storm outside quieted, and the room grew still. Lisa took one last look at her home, then closed her eyes and let go. Tom's return. The next morning, Tom returned home. He had cut his trip short, worried about Lisa after their last phone call. The house was eerily quiet when he entered, the storm having passed. "Lisa?" he called, but there was no answer. He searched the house, his concern growing with each empty room he checked. When he reached the living room, he noticed the mirror. It seemed different somehow, more vibrant, as if it had a life of its own. Tom approached it, seeing his own reflection. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The search for answers. Tom called Lisa's phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. He contacted her friends and family, but no one had seen or heard from her. He reported her missing to the police, who began an investigation. Days turned into weeks with no sign of Lisa. Tom was distraught, unable to understand how she could just disappear. He spent countless hours searching for clues, poring over old photos and messages, trying to piece together what might have happened. The discovery. One evening, Tom was in the attic, going through boxes of old belongings. He found a box labeled Lisa's Things, and opened it. Inside were various items from her past, including a diary. He began to read, hoping to find some answers. The diary entries were typical at first, but then they became more disturbing. Lisa wrote about feeling watched, hearing whispers, and experiencing strange occurrences in the house. The final entry sent chills down his spine. "I think I might be dead. Everything feels wrong. I saw myself in the mirror, and it told me I died in the accident. I don't know what to believe anymore." Confronting the mirror, Tom rushed to the guest room, where the old mirror hung. He stood before it, staring into his own reflection. "Lisa?" he called out, his voice trembling. "If you're here, please, give me a sign." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the surface of the mirror began to ripple. Tom watched in awe and terror as Lisa's reflection appeared, looking back at him with sad eyes. "Tom," her voice echoed in his mind. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I had to move on." Tom reached out to touch the glass, tears streaming down his face. "Lisa, I love you. I'll always love you." Finding peace. Lisa's reflection smiled gently. "I love you too, Tom. You need to let me go. Live your life. Be happy." Tom nodded, his heart breaking. "I will. I promise." The mirror's surface rippled again, and Lisa's reflection faded away. Tom stood there for a long time, letting the tears flow freely. He knew he had to honor Lisa's memory by living his life to the fullest. Moving forward. In the months that followed, Tom sold the old Victorian house and moved to a new city. He started a new job and made new friends, slowly rebuilding his life. He kept Lisa's diary and a photo of her on his nightstand, a reminder of the love they had shared. Though the pain of losing her never fully went away, Tom found peace in knowing that she was at rest. He felt her presence sometimes, a comforting whisper in the wind, a fleeting shadow in the corner of his eye. She was gone, but not forgotten. A new beginning. Tom eventually met someone new, a kind and understanding woman named Sarah. She knew about Lisa and respected Tom's past, never trying to replace her but rather helping him build a future. They moved into a cozy apartment together, filled with light and love. Tom never forgot the lessons he learned from his time in the old house. He cherished every moment, knowing how fragile life could be. He and Sarah created a home filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the haunted halls of his past. The mirror's legacy. The old mirror found its way to an antique shop, where it sat among other relics of the past. It had seen much over the years, but now it was just an object, its haunted days behind it. One day, a young couple entered the shop, looking for a piece to add to their new home. They were drawn to the mirror, its ornate frame catching their eye. They purchased it, unaware of its history, and brought it home. The cycle continues. The mirror hung in the couple's living room, reflecting their joy and love. Occasionally, they would notice odd things, a strange flicker, a whisper of a voice, but they never paid much attention. Life went on, filled with the everyday challenges and triumphs of a young family. The mirror, now a silent observer, held the echoes of its past. It was no longer a portal to another world, but a witness to the lives it reflected. The young couple lived happily, unaware of the mirror's haunted history. The final reflection. Lisa watched over her old home and the people who passed through it. She was at peace, knowing that Tom had found happiness and that her memory would live on. She had moved on to a place of light and love, free from the haunting echoes of her past. The mirror, once a symbol of her torment, was now just a piece of glass. Its secrets were buried, its reflections now of the living, not the dead. Lisa's story had ended, but life continued, new stories unfolding in the reflections of the old glass. And so, the mirror remained, a silent testament to the lives it had touched, and the love that had endured beyond death.
Dear viewers, if you like to watch the scariest horror stories, do subscribe, like and share our channel. Thank you.